The Philippines is an archipelagic country of islands with diversified cultures. All around the world, the Philippines is known for its lively and exciting festive customs, the unique and rich tasting cuisine, and most of all, the warm and hospitable personality of us Filipinos, which draw people all around the world to our country, thus making our fellow Filipinos say, there is no place like home. The Filipino culture had gone a long way since then. Come together with me, Aya and Alyca, as we discover and traverse through our country's culture during the pre-colonial, the colonial, and the modern periods of the Philippines. Let's go!
Starting with the colonial era, Filipinos are independent for years and are divided into major tribal groups: the Aitas, Mangyans, Hanunu, and Ilongots. These tribes had to live with all the abundant resources available to them in order to survive during their time period of independence. They frequently hunted for animals and traveled to bodies of water in search of fish and seafood to consume. Along with this, earlier Filipinos inhabited various forms of land and cultivated it, then used the area to plant rice, bananas, and other crops. During the pre-colonial period, Filipinos were also incredibly resourceful. An example of this is building of various boats and vintas to travel in seas. Contrary to the belief that government in the country was brought by its colonists, early Filipinos practiced governance in their own unique way. Filipinos resided in barangays, which were small villages with about 30 to 100 families. With this form of governance emerged leaders known as the datu, or what we now refer to as barangay captain. Filipinos are remarkably spiritual people when it comes to religion. Animism, or people who worship spiritual beings, is the country's founding religion. Filipinos used to believe that the land was inhabited by a variety of spirits and creatures, both good and evil. They also think that these spirits grant favors. To avoid anger, they pay respect and worship them. These ways of living had been modified when colonizers arrived in the country. With that, let us move on and look at the culture in the colonial era of the Philippines.
Como estas? We are now in Humanon, Eastern Samar, wherein in 1521, Ferdinand Magellan and his crew discovered the island of the Philippines. Due to this significant event, it sparked communication between the Filipinos and Spaniards, which developed over time and had a tremendous impact on our country's culture. The Philippines had been under a long colonial period, for over 300 years by the Spaniards, then by the Americans, and afterwards, briefly followed by the Japanese. Language is among the greatest changes of the era. Given the importance of communication, new vocabularies were employed. My greeting, como estas, which simply translates to how are you, is an example of this. Other words like escuela, calle, cuento, pamilya, ensayo, coche, ayuda, and many others may appear to be common Filipino terms, but they do have a Spanish foundation. When it came on introducing education to the country, Americans used their own language as a medium. Many English words have found their way into the Filipino speech. Some words are pronounced similarly to English words, yet they are spelled differently. Cake is equal to cake, biscuit is equal to biscuit, and computer is equal to computer, for example. Furthermore, there was a rich food culture during this time period. Early Filipinos used to gather and work for their food. New crops, recipes, and cuisines were introduced to them and became well known during this time period. Spaniards brought cocoa, white potatoes, sardines, wheat flour bread, coffee, and several other food, whereas Americans introduced to us the ketchup, the hamburgers, the ice cream, and hot dogs. Additionally, plates and utensils were introduced to us by the Spanish people, as early Filipinos had their own unique style of eating with their bare hands.
Religion is one of the greatest shifts for Filipinos. Filipinos were drawn to Christianity by the Spaniards. They shifted from animism and began to believe in Christ as well as other religious leaders. Apart from Christianity, Islam was also introduced to the country, and then it quickly spread across the island of Mindanao. During this time, animism was overtaken by Western theology.
This time period or era imposed a great shift to the culture that we once had, and it has helped in shaping our modern culture's diversity as it is today.
Filipino culture is still rich in the modern era. Some cultures change while some stayed the same. We will now see the rich food culture and values of Filipinos in today's era. Filipino cuisine is something worth to try since they are commonly described as dishes that are flavorful and rich. One of our unique traditions is how Filipinos are drawn to eat everything with rice, and how rice has become one of our primary sources of energy. When it comes to uniqueness, street food is also prevalent in our country. Sellers can be seen in the streets, in front of offices and schools, and even on shopping malls. Kwek-kwek or quail eggs coated in flour mixture, kikiam and fishball, which come from the processing of seafoods, and the most famous balut, which is a fertilized duck egg embryo boiled and eaten from its shell, are all examples of this. Furthermore, Filipinos have a wealth of values up to this point. One of these is the Filipinos' appreciation of life with enjoyment. These can be seen in Filipinos' love for karaoke. As part of their recreation, Filipinos spend some quality time with their families or friends, singing or belting out new and old songs. As we are talking about fun, the Filipinos have the longest Christmas celebration. Even as early as August, you can hear Christmas songs and jingles being played in the malls or in the restaurants in the Philippines. The mood becomes festive, with many people shopping and in good spirits. Christmas celebrations last until around the first or second week of January.
Truly, our culture is indeed something that we should all be very much proud of. Our fellow Filipinos are indeed very, very creative as they try putting new Filipino twists to old cultures and new trends. Let us all embrace one another and make time to try to explore or discover our very own Filipino cultures. Once again, this is your host Carbie alongside my fellow hosts Alyca and Aya, and we thank you for tuning in. See you next time. Bye!